Saturday, the 15th of November, we are going to be singing Strengthen for Service at St Barnabas Church in Ealing. It's the UK premiere of a work for strings and choir by the American composer Jessica French, and we're delighted that Jessica is going to be joining us now from her home in Seattle. We asked how synaesthesia affects her work as a composer, singer and organist.
Playing the organ was really fun because the more stops you add, and I think for me, my favorite was playing toccatas and playing really, fast, loud things. Even though I'm a very quiet person, for some reason, I just love to be very loud. The brighter the colors would be, especially when you're adding like, forefoot, a mixture, all of those kinds of things, reeds. Um, as a singer, it's similar. Soprano voices have more of it's very interesting, have a white color, the higher they go. And also, the colors of notes and whatever it is, the higher they are, the lighter they are, and the darker they are, or sorry, the lower they are, the darker they are. Um, so as a singer, it's fun, but it's also adding text that you're singing because words have color as well. Names, words, letters. So it's kind of a mixture of all sorts of things, and kind of whatever sticks out most in my mind is what will take priority, I guess, and that will be the main colors that I'm seeing.
Does it drive you crazy if the soprano next to you is singing a tiny bit flat?
I was just thinking about that and I didn't want to say it, but I'm glad that you asked. Yes, I actually, it's kind of funny, especially flat singing. Like if a choir, it happens a lot. We're singing an a cappella piece and then everything starts to sag a little bit. The color will actually get duller. So it's not only aurally not very pleasant, but or yeah, it's also visually in my mind not as bright or not as colorful. And it kind of just becomes vague. And yeah, so
That's a very useful note for us, isn't it, here?
not that I'm judging, by the way, if that happens to anyone.
It's a good junction for me to hand over to Peter, I think.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Peter.
I think we first met through you and Tate, librettist.
That's right. Tate. I just finished another piece with him, actually.
He said to me, "You must listen to Jessica's music because it's fantastic." And I think Strengthen for Service was the first piece that I came across, I think probably via your website. I was really struck, I think, by the luminosity of the sound world in it. And I thought, gosh, this is a really great piece for us to do here, because we do lots of our concerts in a church called St Barnabas in West London, where the acoustic is very generous. And I thought that would sound really gorgeous in there. But I think the first thing that drew me to it actually was your choice of text. And I wondered if you could just say a little bit about why that text, where you came across it, and perhaps also some of the colours that perhaps you associate with that text.
This piece came about because I was commissioned to write it for I think it was the 25th anniversary of the Magdalene Choir School in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I went to school. It's one of the only co-ed Catholic choir schools in the US. And Gregory Glenn, who's the founding director of music there, asked me to write. He gave me that text and said, "Can you set this?" So, and I remember growing up, we sang another setting of it. I mean, there's a few settings. It's a Syro-Malabar text, I believe. And I think there's also a hymn tune called Malabar of that text. So, but it is a very luminous and beautiful text. I think I just I didn't really have a full plan of how the piece would come about. That's kind of what I do with every text. I let the text sit for a few days without writing any music, because I find that if I sit at the piano and then just start to like, okay, maybe I'll use this key center or this chord progression or this melody, it'll start to become very pianistic and it won't be very organic. So I usually memorize the text and really sit with it and speak it to myself so I can get the speech rhythm of it and just kind of the phrasing. And then I usually have like a 1-page document and it's like full of scribbles and all sorts of things. But I'll connect words that are similar in, ideas or whatever it is. And I think just the sacredness of this text, I think it has to do with service as well. But like in a Catholic's point of view, I think it's also about the Eucharist, and so the holy presence of that. Um, so I think there's many ways that it can be interpreted. But I think anytime I'm setting things like that to music, I think the synaesthesia possibly. Like I said earlier, I'm really drawn to very bright colors. And sometimes some of the notes and chords that I hear can also have a shimmering effect, especially um, that's why a lot of my music's very modal. And I think I use the Lydian mode way too much. But
Is it Mixolydian?
oh yes, strength of reserve, you're right, is Mixolydian for sure. Yes, good job. And but like I almost all of my pieces have Lydian at some point, which is like I end a lot of them in Lydian, or I just end up going there at some point. But yes, strengthen is Mixolydian and definitely not planned. Like that's the other thing is people ask, well, why did you choose this mode or that mode? But a lot of the time it just kind of goes that way. The opening of the piece, the string motive that starts, the dee 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 dee, was I just came to my mind when I was about to go to sleep. And that's what happens a lot. It's that kind of doing those mindless tasks or things that are just where your mind is relaxed. I think one of my favorite books is Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and I think she talks about that a lot, where you're doing very mindful things or mindless in the sense of, you're kind of on autopilot. You're not, your ego isn't there, and your logical mind isn't racing. And a lot of motives or key centers or modes that kind of come about happen during those times. So that's kind of how Strengthen for Service started, was that string motive before I even set any of the text. Um, and I think an E itself is orange. So because E major itself, the G sharp is gold and very shimmery. And so I think both of those pieces, G itself in a minor key is still kind of gold, but not as shimmery as a G sharp. So I think I'm just naturally drawn to that area.
Just casting your mind over the rest of the piece, are there particular colors that you think we might see or you might see and tell us about, or perhaps related to that, particular emotions?
I think really that's kind of the main thing. It's gold and orange. In the middle section, I think it's the Lord, may tongues which holy sing. It kind of is in G Lydian-ish, I believe. And I think again, it was like, I think I knew, okay, I'm gonna have a B section here, so I want to do something a little different. G major isn't as shimmery and bright. It's a little more, I don't know, melodic to me. And so I think I still was drawn to the C sharp in that because C sharp is kind of a shimmery pink color. But it's a bright color. So I think I was still kind of drawn toward the holiness of what the text is speaking about. But that's why it goes to that key center for a little while. And I think, oh, I'm remembering now on True Light, when the choir sings from your true light, and then I know it repeats and repeats, and that's definitely the buildup of the piece. And when you're all holding light, and I think sopranos, you're on a G sharp. From your no, G sharp to A. But again, I love G sharp, so that's going high up there. And then having the strings kind of cascade below that. That was supposed to kind of bring out the word light and bring out almost a visual representation of light, whether it's, if it's coming through like a stained glass window or you're just seeing light like the sun or whatever. And it's just kind of, you see all this light just kind of cascading down. That was kind of the point of, or that's what I was trying to evoke with both the choir starting it and then the strings kind of, visually painting it. Because I feel like what I love about synesthesia is, sorry if this is going way further than what you asked, is it really does feel like I'm doing a visual painting, as it were, sometimes. Because, the colors and the ideas of the text and are very prominent in my mind. So I know not everyone can actually see those specific ones, but hopefully as I explain some of them, you might be able to picture it.
That would suggest that the opening needs to be quite bright, quite vivid,
Yes,
quite alive and zingy. Yeah.
very much so. Thank you. Yes, exactly, because it kind of matches the mood of this brightness. And also just the word strengthen. I know I've talked to a few people on that, how I go strengthen, and I know that's kind of tricky to jump up on the unaccented syllable of strengthen. But I think it kind of on the open strengthen, it kind of just really helps it to bloom both visually and aurally. So I think it adds to that whole and just kind of the groundedness of that of strengthen for service. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Should we just give Jessica a big round of applause?